You're in the place where mysteries and the missing meet, where conspiracies lurk around every corner. Welcome to the Deep, Dark Truth.
Welcome back to the Deep, Dark Truth. I'm Dan Cooper. No improv. Come on, guys. Give me something.
I'm Chelsea Lately.
And I'm Barack Obama on the moon.
Damn it, you've won.
Thank you.
And today, we're going to be talking about radiation. So, today's episode is Never Trust a Radio. Because, I don't know, it's the best I could come up with a title to connect these random little incidents where radio frequencies and radio signals are untrustworthy, and we should avoid them.
I mean, I could have told you that, Candy Cane, if you've seen the hit movie. By hit movie, I mean it's a hit movie at my house. Let's be real. Joyride, which teaches you do not talk to people on the other end of the radio.
So, I didn't prepare any sort of intro besides Dan Cooper.
Good, classy.
I present to you today 3 cases that prove that you should not trust radios or anything to do with radiation. First, we're going to start with the WOW signal. On August 15th, 1977, the radio telescope at Ohio State University, which they call the Big Ear, measured a radio wave signal that was statistically significantly big. This Big Ear telescope is pointed at the sky and it's reading radiation from everything. The measurements it takes are based on its deviation from normal space standard noise. So it's like the pH scale. The ratings mean it's really loud compared to normal space loud. So, Dr. Achman was reading through the chart recordings of the Big Ear radio telescope that measures that statistical difference, and he found a line of the code which read 6EQUJ5. And he circled that in red and wrote, "Wow!" with an exclamation point next to it. Because this was the strongest signal, and I think is still the strongest signal that we've ever measured from the outer space, that we don't know exactly what it is. So the deviations are 1 to 9, and then after that, the programmers who made this used the alphabet to mark units of 10 above the noise of the universe. So at U, it is about 30 times as loud as regular space, which is quite loud.
Wow.
Quite space loud. And thus...
Wow.
It's just the 1-0, but it is an exclamation point.
Not to be chip, but to boil this down, loud space noise. Wow.
Exactly.
That's the show. That's it.
I mean, that's basically all this is. So, whatever made this signal was traveling east to west within the Sagittarius constellation, somewhere in that direction. It was recorded for 72 seconds, which is, I believe, the full time that the Big Ear can record a thing. And the Big Ear records with like 2 horns. I don't know why they're called horns, but for whatever reason, this, the WOW signal was only recorded in one of the 2, so that's interesting. But the way the thing records its notes, we don't know which it was. That's unhelpful interesting. And nothing like it has, in that area of space or elsewhere, has ever been detected by Big Ear or anything else ever again. This includes the Very Large Array in New Mexico, which has scanned that area many times, and I just mentioned it because its name is Very Large Array.
Yes. This is my thing with the WOW signal. The fact that we can't find it again. I don't think that it's like a hoax in the fact that somebody deliberately did something, if that makes sense. When you can't replicate something scientifically, it just seems more likely that it's some type of fluke. That something happened that is a fluke, because why wouldn't we be able to find it again?
Well, it could have moved.
Well, yeah, everything in space is moving, though, and we don't lose track of fucking Mercury just because it's moving.
Yeah, but I mean, if the body itself wasn't identified before, it was just a sound.
That's
You
true.
know what I mean?
I mean, that's almost everything in space is how we're detecting it in one way or another. This is just a measurement of increase of radiation. There was something over there that was real radioactive. Despite reading on this, I don't know how to word it properly. It was in the 1420 megahertz frequency band, which is the frequency that hydrogen emits radiation at. And this sort of range around the 1400 is internationally protected and generally banned from use. Asterisk. So NASA did a check at the time when the big year measured WOW, and says that all known space probes were accounted for and were not in the right space to have made that noise. And so nothing on Earth should be broadcasting in the hydrogen frequency because it is protected, but it's not actually entirely banned from usage, and it's not enforceable. It's basically like the UN saying, don't do that. There's no authority behind it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, anytime it comes to any frequencies or sound waves, or you're not supposed to operate a ham radio without a ham radio license unless it's a life or death emergency. That's not to say that doesn't still happen. Same thing with drones. They're only supposed to go so high. Otherwise, then you're involving agencies that have to deal with aircraft, etc., etc. That doesn't mean people don't do it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, couldn't it have just been something that blew up and then was no longer there because it blew up?
No one.
It's like something supernovaing or
A star, anything. I mean...
My only objection to this is that probably the space people know what it looks like when something blows up.
Yeah.
But just for the record on the banning the hydrogen frequency, in the FCC's table of frequency allocations, it does say, quote, in the band 1400 blah 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 megahertz, passive research is being conducted by some countries in a program for the search of intentional emissions from extraterrestrial origin. Plenty of countries are also allowed to use that for international mobile telecommunications. So, yeah.
It's so intriguing at first. I remember the first time I heard about the WOW signal. I think this show has jaded me.
It could be anything.
It's not like, oh, we were able to definitively say that it did not come from anywhere on Earth that was projecting outwardly that made us think this. Nothing's been able to be taken off the table, therefore everything is still on the table.
Right.
Yeah, and so Dr. Edmund and everyone else who was working on this was working for SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So a lot of them are like, well, it's not a pulsar, and X and Y and Z, it's not these things, so maybe it's aliens. The reason it annoys me so much here is because there's no, actual reason to think it's alien, except that we don't have an explanation for it. There's no argument like, oh, we saw something that looked reflective, like a spaceship or whatever the space equivalent would be. It's just, We don't know what it is, therefore it's aliens. In 2017, Antonio Paris proposed that the WOW signal came from a hydrogen cloud surrounding one or both comets, the 266P Christensen and or the 335P Gibbs. But there was a response from SETI. I don't know if Dr. Edmund was directly involved in a response, but their response was basically those comets weren't close enough, and a comet would have been seen by both horns, not just one, and comets don't emit radio signals. But then Paris had another paper that was like, but comets do emit hydrogen radiation signals. So, as far as that's concerned, the scientists have to deal with it, and I'll wait for the textbook. And that's the closest you get to a guess.
If they're already doubling down on aliens, and they were working for an agency that's like, aliens, I start to listen to everybody else more than them. I mean, I'm into it. I'm into the aliens. That's the show. But if all your answer is always aliens and that could be the only answer, no.
And so, this leads into my next case. Just because we don't initially know what it is, that doesn't mean we won't figure it out that it's not aliens. In 1967, pulsars were discovered. Pulsars, for those of you who don't know, who are me, is a type of neutron star. A neutron star is what happens when you have a collapsed supergiant star. And so the pulsar is emitting electromagnetic radiation out of both poles as it's rotating. When we observe it, it's essentially pulsing because we are getting that signal intermittently. In 1967, Jocelyn Bell Burnell discovered pulsars while she was working on her PhD under Dr. Anthony Hewish, where they had a radio telescope pointing at the sky, looking for shit. And so she sees this sort of pattern in the data, and she goes to her supervisor and is like, hey, this is weird. And he's like, not important, dismisses it. So she keeps working on her telescope, seeing this pattern pop up. It keeps coming up, so she's like, I'm gonna look more closely at this. So she's going out there daily for weeks. She's taking what they call her, like, fast recordings that she's doing manually, as opposed to the slow ones that are being automatically done by the radio telescope. And she skips one day, and when she looks at that day, there's the scuff. Because it wasn't there every other time she measured it, but of course it's there the one day she skips. But she keeps staring at the sky, and they just keep finding this pattern. And eventually they figure it out. It's a pulsar. And so, I'm now just going to read a bunch of quotes from her after-dinner speech that she did regarding this, because she's very funny. Physicists shouldn't be this funny. And also, her supervisor, Anthony Hewish, and some other guy, and a bunch of others received the Nobel Prize in Physics for this discovery, and she was not given this award, despite being second author on the paper that won.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, because she was a student.
Ew.
She does this after-dinner speech in 77? Yeah, in 77. And she's like, yeah, I get it, because, it's not a student. I was just a student. It's the professors who are doing the real thing. But then in 2004, she writes a thing. It's like, yeah, no, that was sexism, and I was towing the line. Second author is the thing. Yeah, she was a student, but second listed, where that matters to academics.
I'm not shocked at all, though. I mean, not even aside from her being a woman. I'm not shocked.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed.
Academia is cutthroat. Studies and research and anything that could be groundbreaking.
Especially when it was dismissed at first. What? No. Before they figured out more about it, they did jokingly nickname it LGM1 for Little Green Men. So, her after-dinner speech, because she's too funny. I went home that evening very cross. Here I was, trying to get a PhD out of a new technique, and some silly lot of little green men had to choose my aerial and my frequency to communicate with us. And then she's talking about, hey, this is really cool, and journalists are picking it up. And science is like, wow, this is amazing. Meanwhile, the journalists were asking relevant questions like, was I taller then or not quite as tall as Princess Margaret? We have quaint units of measurement in Britain. And how many boyfriends did I have at the time? I could go on, but I'll stop there. So, just because we don't know what the WoW signal is doesn't mean it's aliens. And now, we're leaving aliens, unless you bring it back to aliens, which feel free.
Oh, I will.
One article I read referred to the case of the Max Headroom hijacking as the DB Cooper of media hijacking. Dun dun dun.
I know what this is.
It's aliens.
Bomb.
The mask looks like an alien. But continue.
Background. Max Headroom is a character from a British TV series / movie who is an AI TV host from a dystopian future where everything is controlled by TV networks and large corporations. Silly 80s, what were they thinking? TV in charge of shit, corporations in power. That's silly.
So, like now?
No, this was a dystopian future.
Oh, so like now.
So the character's backstory, this Max Headroom, is created based on the memories of the fictional journalist, Edison Carter, who is in a motorcycle accident and drops into a coma. The last thing he saw was a road sign that said Max Headroom, 2.3 meters, and the TV network that owns Edison Carter's whole thing hires a hacker to make Max Headroom so that they can keep their ratings up and keep having their money-making show. It's nothing like reality. Absolutely nothing like it. Max Headroom was all about that corporate sponsorship. He was sponsored by Coca-Cola. This is relevant.
And now a break to hear from our sponsors.
I would love to be sponsored by Coca-Cola. So just to describe what he looks like, Max Headroom character, as played by Matt Frewer. It's a very square, angular head, giant forehead, square jaw, slick back blonde hair. Cut to November 22nd, 1987. At about 9:16 p.m. in Chicago, there's a sports segment on the news of an independent TV station, WGN-TV, Channel 9. At 9:16 p.m., the signal stops for a moment. It cuts to black, and then on the screen appears a person wearing a Max Headroom plastic mask and sunglasses. There's a sort of striped background rotating behind him, and Max Headroom is just sort of headbanging. And he just, for 17 seconds, he just sort of moves around, looks a little confused. Well, confused, he doesn't have any facial features, but sort of bored, and then it cuts to black again. And we go back to the sports newscaster, Dan Roan, who also is like, I don't know what that was. If you're wondering what just happened, so am I.
In our show notes, in our sources, there will be pictures on the website.
I have the YouTube links. There's going to be video links. I'll be letting you two watch them as well.
Is horrifying. Think like the presidential masks around Halloween, like a Richard Nixon-y type of mask that is just so overpronounced and like a caricature of a face. It's a caricature of a face. And while it's not necessarily scary in and of itself,
it's upsetting.
It just is creepy. Yeah, it's upsetting. It's upsetting to see.
I don't like it. That first clip, that first hijacking, lasted about 17 seconds, not including the 16 seconds of black screen before and after. That signal was cut off by one of the TV engineers who was monitoring the TV and went, nope.
Which was absolutely the best thing to do.
His entire job. Now I'll give you approximately 1 minute and 40 seconds to watch this video.
Went wild.
What the fuck?
I like how, too, everybody just accepted that because no one had any idea how computers worked. So they're just like, the computer has a mind of its own that we use to run the station here. Wild. Like, that is not how things work, bud.
I don't know what you mean. It's 87. These computers, they're taken over. 2 hours later, at about 11:15 p.m., on a different channel, which is a PBS station, WTTW, Channel 11.
Also in Chicago?
Yes. During an episode of Doctor Who, which happens to feature the Fourth Doctor, the episode being Horror of Fang Rock. Once again, the radiation of death is hijacked. This time there is no cut to black. It's just goes straight into the same horrifying Max Headroom mask wearing sunglasses, sitting in front of the same rotating background. But this time we can hear him. A lot of it is not clear, and what little bits you get of it don't make a lot of sense. So, before I let you watch it, go through what you're gonna see. The voice is very distorted. I don't know if that was on purpose or just the fact that these were radio waves in the 80s and there was no way to not make it distorted. A sportscaster, not the one from earlier, a different one, Chuck Swirsky, calls him a freaking liberal. And then he's leaning over and like swearing. He's like, Jesus. He holds up a can of Pepsi and says, catch the wave, which was the Coca-Cola slogan at the time. Then he gets upsettingly close to the camera, flips the bird with what is either a rubber finger or some sort of dildo. It's unclear. I think it's a rubber finger, but
only liberals have dildos. Everybody knows that. So
no, we will be asking for Mikey your expertise to analyze this in a moment.
Drag her.
Mikey says in reference to himself in the third person.
Yes. All right, where's this video?
No, we're not even halfway done through the description, guys. We can just watch it.
God, I kind of love him. He's kind of my hero. And also, I'm pretty sure he called everybody watching Doctor Who fucking nerds, and that he purposefully, like, he knew what he was interrupting at that point.
When the signal ends and we go back to Doctor Who, the next line, very clear as day, is the Doctor saying, "As far as I can tell, a massive electric shock. He must have died instantly."
So what are the theories?
Well, there aren't really a lot of, substantial theories or people who were investigated. One of the big points of interest that anyone can talk about is that it looks like a sort of warehouse door, that sort of garage door, that type thing. And there was a somewhat credible tip at the time about someone who worked at a warehouse like that where it could have been filmed. But the investigators had basically no real evidence or anything to go on. They didn't even have enough to get a search warrant. And the investigation didn't have a lot of funding or resources put behind it. So to this day, it is unsolved.
It's really interesting to me that in 1987, he had his bare ass out, and that they didn't do more to arrest him or charge him with something, just because, I mean, even now there's so much that you can't say on television or on the radio, let alone that. And the FCC will find the shit out of you. I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars.
At the time, the fine would have been up to $100,000.
Oh my God.
And or a year in jail.
Wow.
They do not fuck around. Even this show has to be marked as explicit. And that's only because the podcast industry has been able to keep itself away from a lot of the limitations that the FCC has. But who knows when that will end, honestly. At any time, there could be regulations imposed on us.
But also, to be fair, one, you don't really see his ass. Yeah, you see it, but you don't see it. And this was at 11 at night, so, after dark, sexy time.
Okay. Well, at 11 at night, how many Girls Gone Wild commercials have I saw in my lifetime? Can't count
But it was
them.
PBS playing Doctor Who.
I've never ever watched an episode of Doctor Who, and I know nothing about it other than weeping angels and a telephone booth.
Yeah, that's all you really need to know.
That's the gist. Bad Wolf.
Is that it?
Bad Wolf.
That's
Add
it?
Bad Wolf to your repertoire.
Just say that.
Bad Wolf, and then I'll know what I sound like I'm talking about.
Just be like, yeah, Bad Wolf, woof, and then just see what people say. Just see what happens. Woof.
Start humping someone's leg. So, that second one, it cuts back to Doctor Who. Because of the hijackers, the station did not cut it off. They couldn't. There wasn't an engineer in the building monitoring at the time.
Oh, at that time, yeah.
So, it was
that makes sense.
The hijackers who said it ends there, not anyone else. And I just find it really interesting, weird, that he does say freaking. He is not saying fucking.
Yeah, his mom might be watching.
I mean, but if you're gonna have your ass out, you might as well say fucking, right?
Guess.
I mean,
he's a freaking nerd.
It's vernacular, too. Like Chicago in the late 80s. The freaking Bears. It feels like it was culturally relevant in a different way at the time, which is probably why. It was just his everyday.
So far as evidence goes, there isn't any. People think, it's likely that it was a really strong transmitter, and it was probably within line of sight to the two buildings, the John Hancock building and the Sears Tower, where the broadcasting was. Because it would have had to be very strong to take over those signals. It was possibly someone with a lot of technical knowledge in order to get a hold and use this transmitter to overpower the regular TV station. Some people think it might have been some sort of disgruntled employee or ex-employee or person who didn't get hired.
I would think that would probably be a strong idea. I mean, they obviously know, right? What they got to do and what frequencies and things of that nature.
But I would also think, if this happened today, I would automatically look for storage facilities or warehouses, a high enough floor to have even a shittier signal be able to transmit to those other towers uninhibited by other buildings. It would go farther.
It was pre-recorded. It did not have to be filmed where it was shot from.
Oh, got it. I thought it was a live feed. Got it.
No.
Well, that changes things. Chilling in the lobby.
Yeah, being that it was pre-recorded even makes me even more think that it was an employee who kind of knew when to do it, how to do it.
I just find it interesting that when I first watched the first one, I was like, this is live. And he just looks like he doesn't know what to do. Like, I'm headbanging, and now I don't know.
Yeah.
But it probably / must have been also pre-recorded. So why wasn't it more interesting? Then, obviously, they figure their shit out.
It feels like an inside joke a little bit. Like the purposeful constructed things of what he's saying, even though we can only hear half of what he's saying. It feels pointed. Like he says nerd like 5 times. I don't know. Something about it feels, I'm gonna show my buddies this, or I told you I could do it.
Yeah.
Intentional in a way that I know that I don't understand.
When people watch us making inside jokes, they're like, something's happening here. I don't really care to know.
Yeah. Or I'm just going to sit here quiet and hope that somebody will explain what's happening.
A couple days after that, a different sports anchor on another channel made a prank video where he made his own thing and spliced it with some of the real footage. And he was basically mocking the FCC. It was like, they're gonna catch this guy. They couldn't even make what's-his-face be nice.
I'm surprised that the FCC at that point wasn't infuriated enough to be hiring like private investigators and shit. Especially with that big of a fine that they would have got. It seems like a lot to hire a private investigator, but not if once they find the culprit, that culprit has to pay you $100,000 and it's 1987. To the FCC, it's chump change, but it's not chump change to any normal person.
In 2022 dollars, that's about $244,000. So absolutely chump change to the FCC. But please hand me any amount of money.
And it's a lesson. That's lesson money. That's like, it's the principle of the thing. We can't just let people think that they can do this. You would have thought that they would have pursued it more because of that, too.
You would think.
I mean, it's the exact same reason why, like, if you see a lighter in a dispensary, A, you're an idiot because you're on camera at 20 different angles, but B, like, they're gonna go after you. They have to.
Yeah.
They have to.
For the record, the Department of Justice has a policy, as it were. In the absence of a specific statute of limitations, the default federal limitations is a period of 5 years.
Come on, then. Somebody tell us.
Yeah. No one's ever come forward and been like, it was me.
Or like, it was my brother Bob.
The one article I read did have some guy who was like, at the time, I knew these people. I'm going to call them J and K. They're brothers, blah, blah, blah. Except it's just him telling a story. This guy went on Reddit and was like, I think it was these 2 guys. I knew them in Chicago at that time. And they were talking about things that might be this. I have no evidence to back it up. And when I messaged them, they ignored me. So like, okay, that's nice.
It is interesting that he thought it enough all these years later to, like, message them and just be like, just tell me.
Yeah.
Just tell me. It's like me and Chip if we never would have figured out Jay in 20 years from now. Just tell me.
What if it was D.B. Cooper?
Well, clearly it was Dan Cooper.
I mean, Dan Cooper.
Chip, offended.
He's the D.B. Cooper of media hijacking.
How dare they offend Dan Cooper in such a way?
There's one just sort of internet pet theory that was this performance artist, musician guy, Eric Fournier, who has a YouTube series that I've never seen called Chez St. John. And it's apparently similar style, and he lived in Indiana at the time.
I'm sick of mysteries. Somebody give me answers. Or at least really compelling theories. I just want, like, really compelling shit.
It was a message from the aliens. They were trying to communicate using our language that they learned from the TV.
Single female lawyer.
And they found the most used word used by human beings on Earth was nerd. so they used it a lot.
Is this how you're relatable? Hello, fellow kids?
Hello, my fellow kids. Well, Chip, that was all very compelling. And by compelling, I mean I have no answers.
This is Conspiracies Podcast. We don't have answers, we just have bigger questions.
It's a new year, which means a new survey. If you didn't like this episode, it's your own fault. Send us in suggestions for future episodes. You can also send tips to the tip line at 313-355-3411 and send emails to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast at gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Mo.
I'm Chip, I guess.
And I'm Mikey, I think.
Bye.
But why was the frog a person in a puppet suit, whereas everything else was just humans? Welcome. Wait, nope, I want it longer. Welcome back to the Deep Dark Truth. I'm Dan Cooper.
I'm Oprah Winfrey.
How dare you?
And I'm Obama, but I'm on the moon.
You just listened to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast. See you next time. And remember, your local cryptids want to meet you.